Good morning, YouTube. It's Eli at the Rainy Forge, and as always, we're going to make a knife today. I have a customer of mine who has ordered a couple knives off of me, and he's been a really great customer, and he requested to have a custom knife made. And he also requested a shout out, so here's to you, Hugh, and that I make a quick video making his awesome custom camp knife. So, have a piece of W2 steel left over. This is the last I got. Luckily, I have enough steel here for 2 knives, just in case something goes horribly wrong, but I doubt it will. So the first thing that we got to do with this W2 steel is figure out what shape this knife needs to be. And I've actually, as you probably saw, I've already marked some chalk on here, just my rough lines of where things is going to be. But I want to show all of you exactly what I'm making. So as I'm hammering it out, you have that pictured in your head, and you can kind of see with me how things shape and how things change as I hammer on the steel. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and design out this knife. This is the knife that Hugh bought. And so we're basically recreating that, but with a 6-inch blade. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to have to angle it just because of how big this knife is going to be. And I'm just going to roughly mark out here 6 inches. And I'm going to go back over that with markers so you can actually see it here on the camera. There's our 6 inches. So we'll go back to the pencil here for a second. And it's going to end up being about an 1.5 inches, I think, tall. With the material I have. And then that's going to have a nice long belly. Just like that. Let's see what we got going on there. And then this is going to come in to the handle. Nice curve. Then we'll bring that handle back, slightly angled down. And that'll probably be about 6.5 inches for the handle. We're going pretty basic, just like the one he bought. Pretty basic, pretty simple, but it sits nice in the hand. You can get a really good grip on it, and it doesn't roll on you when you go to chop stuff. So there is our handle and our knife. And that'll have our handle scales on here with some pins. And this is going to be a beautiful blue resin and black walnut handle scales on this, which is going to be really sweet. So then we're also going to put some jimping on the spine. So that'll look something like that. And then the whole thing is going to be just a nice, tall, full, flat grind bevel. So there we go. Now out to the forge. So before I get going here, I wanted to have a quick talk about fires and fire making. So now, as a kid, I was in Boy Scouts, so you can imagine growing up and being able to make money off of building a campfire every day is pretty fucking sweet. So when you're working with a coal forge and coal fire, you need to make sure that you have a really good hot bed of coals going. Otherwise, when you add your coal, it won't light, or it'll only light a little bit, and eventually it'll kind of peter out on you. So you want to make sure you have a really good, strong bed of coals going before you add any actual coal. Best way to do that, build a basic campfire, light it, let it burn for a little while, and then as soon as it's hot enough to really catch any of your hardwoods, then you just grab your hardwood, add it to the fire, and wait until you have that really nice bed of hot coals going there. Then you can add your coal. Alright, so I've got my fire going here, and she's just about hot enough. So we're going to go ahead and start adding our little chunks of hardwood. And we want to make sure that we save everything when we're making knives, so all of this chunks of wood, all of this is left over from cutting out for doing handles. And the paper that I use to start my fire is usually scraps of paper left over from cutting out shapes for knife sheaths. So, very important in this day and this economy. Thanks, Joe Biden. Be smart, use everything you got. So I've got the fire nice and hot. Pardon the noise, my blower's really loud. Until I get my good hand crank blower going, it's this noisy old fucker. So, now that I've got a good base of coals going, we're going to add our actual coal. And what I've found is if you add enough to really completely cover your coal bed, you'll get the most surface area and the best chance of lighting your coal, especially if you've got hard to light coal like I got. So I got my fire going, and she's just about hot enough to start working in. I got my my coffee. I love this canister. I just have to be careful because if I set it in my workshop on the bench, I don't get confused. It actually blends right in, and I can never find it. But I got my coffee. I'm gonna light a pipe and rock and roll on some tunes and get hammering. So first thing, we gotta forge out the tip. Again, so we don't get fish lips, what we're looking for here is just that nice little rounded tip, as you can see that. And when we go to forge our tip nice and flat, it'll come to a nice point instead of giving us 2 points. There you can see that tip really starting to shape now, and no fish lips. Alright, I got that tip just about there. Just straighten her out nice. So, I had my 6-inch mark for the blade on the knife when I started, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to see that again. So what we're going to do is I'm going to mark out 6 inches here on my anvil. Chalk is your best friend if it'll stick. There we go. So there's my 6-inch. Now I'm going to pull my blade out and see roughly where that 6 inches is. So we're right about there. So without burning myself here, Give a nice mark on our steel. Now the awesome thing about chalk is I'll put this back in the forge, heat that area up, and that chalk will actually stay there. The only thing that rubs it off is if you're going in and out of the forge a lot, rubbing against the coals. Other than that, she'll stay there. Same thing in a propane forge. Chalk's awesome. So now that we got that heated up, we're going to use a nice hard angle on the anvil to get that started right there. So there you can see that started. So I'm going to hammer on that and work that out a bit. So you can see that handle shape is starting there. We're getting that nice angled shape. So we're going to keep working that out a little bit and then focus on the blade again. So tools are very important. As you can see, I've got this wave going on here and I want to get that straightened and flattened out. So what we're going to do is use a piece of wood to hammer instead of our metal hammer. And that will take that bend out without messing with my blade at all. Slowly but surely taking that out of there. I'm just making sure to work both sides nice and even. That helps a lot with the banana-ing too. Banana-ing. The thing blacksmiths say. I'll switch back to my small hammer. Just really, really pinch that blade. Really draw it out. So I got the shape that I want. So now the next step is to cut this tang. And I find the key is just to give it a really, really good initial strike. And that'll really get it in there. So you have a nice line. And it's easy to find when you fall off the cutting bit. There we go. See? Super easy. One good solid hit right at the start. That's all you need. So now we just want to flatten everything out. I'm going to draw that handle out just a little bit more. Give me a little bit more material. And I really want to flatten everything out on this knife because it's going to be ground nice and clean with a nice mirror polish, no forged texture, maybe a little hammer mark here or there, but nothing big. So what we're going to use to make sure this is nice and flat is my nice big flattening hammer. I love this thing. It does a great job. So instead of using the hammer like a normal hammer and pounding, what we want to do is get our nice flat surface, throw our flattening hammer on there, and then tap it. Now the whole knife will want to curl while I'm doing this, and that's okay, because we're going to use the wood to flatten it out afterwards. But what this does is it takes out any big craters left over from my hammer swings, which are just stupid hard to grind out. So we want to get this nice and flat and prepped so she can be ground clean with minimal effort. Alright, so I have the final shape here forged out, and the only thing left to do is throw her back in the forge and let her cool down and anneal. So I'm actually going to stretch this handle a little bit more. As you can see, I have my chalk line here, and once she's fully annealed, we'll take her in and take her on the grinder and grind out that nice little shelf right there, and fully finish the profile and put an edge on her. Alright, so I have the knife. I went ahead and just ground a rough shape for it and put that little shelf in right there. And so the next thing we're going to do is throw it on a nice fresh 36 grit sanding belt and get her nice and flat and clean and polished. Alright, so there she is, nice and flat and clean. And before I put an edge on it, we're going to go ahead and drill the holes for the handle. So there's the holes drilled for the handle, and I'm going to go ahead and put that first full flat grind bevel on there. So there's that rough bevel ground in, and now I'm just going to take that to 60 grit. And we're going to put some jimping in on the spine. So I got this rotary tool, cutting tool here, and we're going to just put some jimping in on this blade. Alright, so there's the jimping all cut in. And again, the point of that is when you're cutting with a knife, you got something for a little bit of grip on the spine with your thumb. And a lot of the cutting force is a pushing down and in force, and not just sliding. So that jimping really helps with a good cut. It's not for cutting trees. Stop doing that. And also, if you buy a knife that does have a saw blade on the spine, you're an idiot. You're going to cut yourself, because one day you're not going to be paying attention and you're going to put your thumb on there and it's going to slide and you're going to cut your thumb. So if you want a knife with saw blade teeth on it, make sure they're on the blade, not on the spine. That will also destroy your sheath. It will eat the crap out of a leather sheath and a Kydex sheath. So, jimping, not for cutting trees. We're going to take this knife and we're going to go ahead and we're going to get heat treated, and I will come back to you once all of that is done. Alright, I have the knife. It's been hardened to around 61 HRC and then tempered back slightly at 350 degrees for an hour. So the next thing I got to do is clean it all up, get it ready for the handle. I have this bit of black walnut set in blue resin for the handle. It's going to look absolutely gorgeous. So once the knife's cleaned up, I'll line it up on the handle scales here, drill those holes, and cut out the shape for the handle. Gotta love a fresh belt. All that work in no time. So there's 600 grit, and now I'm going to take it to my buffing wheel and bring it to a nice mirror polish. So there she is, all polished up, and there's a few more little bit of scratches in there, and I want to get rid of all of that. So there's a little trick that I figured out. Instead of sitting at a knife for 20 minutes with 1000 grit and higher sandpaper and really getting all that crap out of there, we're just going to dunk it in acid for about 20 seconds, clean it off, polish it back up, and that'll get rid of those scratches. And it also gives the knife just a little tiny bit more rust and stain resistance. So I'll go dip her in some acid and get back to you. And there she is. No more scratches. Or at least very, 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 very small, minimal scratches. And now we'll go ahead again with our block resin, drill our holes, draw out the shape of the handle, cut it out, glue it on. Alright, handle scales have been glued on. You can see how that blue resin and black walnut's going to look. It's going to be pretty awesome. And now just take material away, grind it down, and shape it out nice. So I have the handle ground to 36 grit, and the blue on this side looks absolutely phenomenal, and that's going to look even better as I get higher and higher in grit. But I don't have any blue on this side. So the fix, because we want the blue in the resin, the fix that we're going to do is I'm going to take a rubber band, put that around the handle, and then use my pencil to mark out So there's that marked. And I'm going to go over to the bandsaw, and I'm actually going to take a chunk of the wood out of the handle on both sides, matching. And we're going to put a chunk of resin in there, blue resin, so that there's a little bit of blue on both sides, and it looks a little bit nicer. So there's some resin inlays, spacers, whatever you want to call them. And now we're just going to grind this down to 220 grit and then move over to sandpaper. So there that handle is, taken to about 400 grit. And now we're going to hit it with a 600 grit sandpaper and then 1000 grit sandpaper and then some oil to really make everything pop. So on this knife, instead of oil, well, it is oil, but we're going to put this on there. Ballistol. This is my awesome all-purpose oil lubricant cleaning supply. It's very, very clear, which is nice. Unlike linseed oil or tung oil that darkens your wood significantly, this stuff kind of stays nice and clear, which is great for already dark woods that I don't want to lose all that grain, because that stuff is exactly what we want in a handle. So there's that oil on there. Is that pretty or what? Oh yeah. Thing's awesome. Alright, well, now I just got to put a final edge on it and do the sheath, and I'll get back to you. So here's the finished knife, and I've gone ahead and put a nice edge on it. However, as of right now, the edge is sharp, but it's not quite hair-popping sharp. So I usually finish my edges. I'll get to this point just on my belts, and then I'll finish it with a whetstone. So as you can see right now, you're actually pretty sharp. We're cutting through that paper, but you can see that cut is not the greatest. It's a little jagged. I want a nice clean slice through. So how we're going to get to that point is we're going to start on my 3000 grit whetstone and then flip it over, and the other side is 8000 grit. So the key for using a whetstone to sharpen a knife is we don't want to move the wrist at all. We want none of the motion of the knife to be in the wrist. We want to find a really good position, get that angle right where we want it, lock our arm, get our other hand on the knife, and with force, but not too much force, just slide across that stone. And if it feels like we're cutting into the stone, if it feels like the stone is grabbing the steel, that is exactly what we're looking for. That is what we want to feel. If it feels like the knife is just sliding across the top without doing anything, either we have our angle wrong or we've sharpened it as far as we can get with this grit of a stone. really nice and sharp. So now we'll switch to the other side. And do the exact same thing. Probably about 3 times per side or so. It's already feeling good. Of course, this knife was already pretty sharp to begin with, so it won't take quite as much work. And that's why I like to start my edge as fine as I can get it on my belts. Saves me a lot of time on the whetstone, and you can get things really, really, really nice and sharp. That's feeling really good. So a lot of people, myself included, will use the paper or receipt cutting test to see how sharp an edge is. However, a lot of times when you feel the edge and you go to cut something, it might feel like it's sharp. There's a really good trick that you can use to determine if a knife is really sharp or if you're just feeling a bit of a burr on the edge. And the best way to do that is take your fingernail, very lightly, just let the weight of the knife do all the work, set it on the fingernail, just slowly pull it. And if the edge is sharp, you'll actually be able to feel it cut into the nail, and there'll be a little mark there. So this knife needs a little bit more work, but that is the best test that you can do. And when my buddy first showed me that trick, I was really freaked out by it, because I'm like, my knives are really sharp and I don't want to cut through my fingernail. And he's like, well, you're not putting any downward pressure onto your nail. It's just the weight of the knife alone, and you can tell if the knife is sharp because just that small amount of weight is enough to cut the nail. Alright, I got the final edge on there. She's nice and sharp. Good clean cut. Say no burrs, wasn't ripped at all, nice clean cut, as straight as I can get it with my shaky hands. And now, she's headed out to you, Hugh. Thanks for watching till the end. If you liked this video, hit the big like button down below, and also hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. Share this video with your friends, anyone who likes knives or blacksmithing, and if you want to check out more behind the scenes here at the Rainy Forge, check out my Instagram and my Facebook, links in the description below. If you'd like to buy a knife or order something custom like the badass knife that you just saw me make for Hugh, well, hit me up over on my Etsy, The Rainy Forge, or my website, www.therainyforgeblacksmithy.com. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, keep on keeping on.